Jonathan Fisher has recently released his latest book called Where the Stars Be Still as Bright, sci-fi hit that has already been received very well. Jonathan also studies in the SERC in Lisburn, and we're here in the SERC to discuss his book a little bit further. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Chloe, and also everyone else.
Your book consists of a collection of short stories. What should we expect within your new book?
Pathos, science fiction action, and everything in the sun. It took about 3 years to write it at this time.
Be Still as Bright. The book Where the Stars Be Still as Bright.
Ray Bradbury's famous novel, Mcauley. Ray Bradbury is my favourite author, and the title stems from a poem by Ray Bradbury, and the moon is be still as bright.
And where does the production of these books take place?
I write on my iMac, sometimes on my phone when I'm tired, yeah.
You're living with Addison's disease. Could you explain to those watching how that affects your writing?
When I get tired, it affects my speech, as you know. Have you noticed that? It affects my speech patterns when I get tired, yeah.
Could we talk about your earlier years growing up? Was sci-fi something that you would have delved into a lot?
I did. I love sci-fi all my life. Big sci-fi nerd. I love the comic 2000 AD. I want to be Rollers, Batmos. He created 2000 AD and the comic I adore.
And what writers do you like to read, and where do you take your inspiration from?
Batmos and Ray Bradbury, a few authors, Harry Harrison, and Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, and all the classics.
And why do you think you enjoy sci-fi so much?
Because, Chloe, it's the future. The future is here soon. The future is here now.
And why did you choose Jim Burns to design your covers?
I know Jim Burns for a long time. He's inspired me for a long time. He's the best in the field.
And you're now studying here in the SERC in Lisburn. What inspired you to start studying art?
I studied maths and physics here at the time. And then I started art, and art's my life now, yeah.
Now we're going to delve into the book itself and look at one story in particular, Vincent's Room. And as you'll hear, this is actually where the book got its title. Vincent's Room. Summer soul florets, soul blooms beam their lion heads in August noons, ripening under harvest moons. Golden aureate, shining things that caught the artist's eyes, Vincent's inspirations exuding strange perfumes. Keeping time with sunlight, a clockwork golden amber watch, powered by soil and star stuff, roaring and prowling in fields of fire. The Sunflower, a poem by Dorothy Sayles, July 26, 2525. A strong wind blew through the garden of tall golden sunflowers. The gust was caused by the arrival of a time machine from the future. The machine's cloaking device hid it from view, making it invisible to the outside observer. The flowers continued to follow the sunrise slowly throughout the day, indifferent and oblivious to the arrival of the machine. Inside, there was a group of teenage schoolchildren, the teacher and the pilot, the chrononaut. He halted the chronosphere in the year 1888 in Arles, France. Who lives here? I have heard that you take in boarders, asked the teacher, glancing around. He already knew the answer, however he wanted to confirm the identity of the man. The children milled around the hall. The widow replied, "Why, that would be my lodger, the Dutchman." She gave a polite cough and covered her mouth. "He is a painter, Vincent van Gogh. You have noticed the fumes?" Michaels nodded. A quiet man, of all accounts, very prolific at his works. But sadly, for his sake and sanity, he is not a profitable one. He has not sold one of his works yet. His brother Theo supports his artistic endeavours. The widow Venesac continued and lowered her voice so the children could not hear. Van Gogh suffers from the blackest moods, sometimes fits of temper. She lowered her voice even more to a whisper, a somewhat violent temperament.
And we're now joined by Heather McGarnicle, who's going to speak a little bit further about the book. Heather, thank you very much for joining us today. So Heather, would you be able to briefly explain your relationship with Jonathan?
Well, in terms of how I came to know the book or be involved in it was, again, Jonathan and I have been friends for a number of years. I had a blog. He approached me a number of years ago when he was looking for local bloggers and writers to help him, get the word out about his upcoming book that was actually still in production at that point, I believe, 10 Minutes on Mars, which was his first science fiction and fantasy work. It was an amazing kind of precursor to Where the Stars Be Still As Bright. But the latest book, which is again a collection of sci-fi and fantasy short stories, Jonathan approached me after it took him 3 years to write this book, which, having read it, it's amazing that it came together in that time because it's so full. But yes, he approached me during lockdown as a writer and an editor to help him with the editing process of the book, so I kind of got the first look at it.
And what was the editorial process like with the book?
Definitely a challenge doing that in lockdown conditions, because obviously, as the entire world was doing everything remotely, there's lots of phone calls and Zoom meetings and things like that. But we're very lucky that the technology is there, that we were able to kind of just share the documents, the manuscript of the book. But it was the material was there, very little needed done to it.
And Heather, what can the audience expect with the latest book?
What I really love about both Jonathan's fiction books, the 2 collections of short stories, what I love about them, both 10 Minutes on Mars and the latest book, Where the Stars Be Still As Bright, is that if you love fantasy and sci-fi, you will get a lot of enjoyment from these books. There's lots of references, little nods and winks and Easter eggs and things for people to enjoy. You'll be able to see the influences, but with Jonathan's own particular twist on them. But if you're someone like me who's not, a great reader of sci-fi or fantasy, you can still enjoy these collections just as works of art, as great stories and pure escapism. They take place, in worlds that are a little like our own and a little like our current time, but also way in the future and in the deep and distant past as well. So it really is a pure journey of escapism.
And Jonathan, I hope this doesn't embarrass you, but Heather, would you be able to talk about how you personally know Jonathan, but also his personality?
As a fellow writer, his imagination is the first thing. I've never read work that is so imaginative. Like, his imagination is quite literally boundless. If anyone who has read the memoir August Always, Jonathan's been an artist for all of his life, an incredibly talented artist, specialising in portraiture. I have been lucky enough to actually have my portrait painted by Jonathan as well, pride of place in my home. So that's again another one of the things that he continued with and is at the centre of his creative life. He's not just a writer, he's also a visual artist, attends classes here at SERC to keep his skills sharp, and continues to improve. And his subjects range from real life people like my good self, and also sci-fi characters and characters from TV and film as well. As a person, we've talked a little bit about the illness and the physical limitations that Jonathan lives with, but he is defined more by what he can do and what he's brought to the world than really what he can't do. Basically, Addison's disease affects the adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys, and they don't produce enough hormones, and this can affect things like energy levels and obviously can be life-threatening. My auntie, my father's sister, actually lives with Addison's disease. So there's a family connection there, and they've bonded over living with the effects of that disease. That it really does touch every aspect of your life. And my auntie indeed had an Addisonian crisis herself, and so we know what a profound effect that has on someone's life. The extent to which it affected Jonathan, the fact he's mentioned that he is unique in the world. I don't think there are any recorded medical cases of someone having such a severe crisis, untreated Addison's for so long, and recovering to the extent that Jonathan has. With full cognitive function, and then to go and to create not 1 but 3 books, including a very personal memoir, is it's more than most of us achieve in a lifetime. So yeah, it's a bit corny, but we do call him the superhero of Lisburn.
And you were also there at the book launch as well, Heather. How did that go?
Oh, it was brilliant. The book launch for Where the Stars Be Still As Bright was in the Geek Retreat, which is a new kind of comic books and sci-fi, computer games. People who love all this kind of thing, flock to the Geek Retreat. And even though it was on a Wednesday night, in a cold November night, we had people queued out the door, waiting to buy their books, directly from Jonathan, and to get them signed. So it was a huge success. It was amazing to see such a good turnout. And even Dr. Crone, Jonathan's old English teacher from Laurel Hill, was there and sat in the corner reading the book for most of the night. So he was rapt. So yeah, really successful night, and great to be a part of it.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan and Heather, for joining us today.
Mr. Michaels, good gracious, I never realised that your pupils were so, she searched for a word, so studious. My class is very special, dear lady. He steadied the tray on his knees, lifting it off her hands. Thank you for the refreshments. A touch of lemon in the water, most refreshing. Gracious thanks to you. Everyone drank the water. Come now, said the grand-mère. I will show you his atelier. She led the way through the blue panelled doorway. It was a treasure trove of Van Gogh's paintings, works in progress, sketches, some finished, others unfinished. There were various pots of paints, rags and brushes that littered the scene. Amongst the clutter, on a table sat a large empty vase. Would you all like to see the artist's bedroom? I'm sure he won't mind, said the widow Venesac with a considerable amount of pride in her voice. I keep his lodgings extremely well maintained. Some of his best works are hung up on his bedroom walls. Let's go up the stairs. Dorothy hesitated. Staying at the back from the others, she looked hard at the vase. Every vase should have a flower, she considered. Without anyone else noticing what she was about to do, she unzipped her backpack and retrieved the sunflower and shoved it hastily into the vase. The flower was slightly distressed and its stem broke. She hurried upstairs to join her classmates in Vincent's room. The artist's bedroom reflected the passions of the man. The room was painted in subtle azure tones, the doors, the ceiling and the adjacent washroom. The main feature that drew Dorothy's attention was the single wooden bed with double white pillows at the headboard and a crimson red Hessian linen bed cover. At the head, 2 of Vincent's shirts hung on a pegged linear sidebar with one of his many straw painting hats. Directly above his bed was a landscape, and beside his bed hung twin portraits by Van Gogh himself. 2 other small paintings were set below. Twin wicker chairs for visitors, and perhaps Vincent himself would sit there looking out at the street lamps, watching the fireflies flitting through the eaves, his window slightly ajar with only his pipe for company. Before travelling through the warm August countryside using the constellations for a canvas, illuminated by the Milky Way galaxy, and where the stars be still as bright. All good?